Okay, it's really important to make sure you know what your subject and your verb are going to be in your sentence. So in this first sentence right here, before gunpowder was invented, soldiers often wore armor. You're going to first find your independent clause. So right here, soldiers often wore armor is the one part of the sentence that could be an independent, is a sentence all by itself, which is an independent clause. Soldiers is your subject. Subjects are usually nouns or pronouns sometimes, but in this case, your subject is just a noun. Okay, so soldiers is a noun. War is your verb. That's what the soldiers did. And then what did they wear? That's the object. It's also a noun. Okay, so soldiers often wore armor. Often describes how often they, or the time that they did it. So you're talking about an adverb in this case. So if you take a look at, if we just, whoa, sorry about that. We've got a noun, verb, and another noun. Often describes the time when they did this, and then so here you have an adverb because it's describing the verb. Adverbs always describe verbs. So we've got the subject and your object nouns. Then up here we have something we call a dependent clause. It's not a complete sentence all by itself. It would be a fragment if it were alone. But gunpowder is another noun, and was invented is a verb phrase. Okay? Was would be an auxiliary verb, and invented is your participle, past participle. Before is a subordinating conjunction. So conjunction is one of those words, and it's a time word. Okay? So before gunpowder was invented, soldiers often wore armor. That's pretty much that one. Let's move on to your next one. Let's do it again. What is the subject of this particular sentence? And what's the verb? So let's find the verb first. Here we have was made. And you've got your verb phrase, right? Of thousands of fish-like scales. Of is a preposition. At the end of most prepositional phrases, you're going to find a noun eventually. Let's look at the end of this prepositional phrase. And sure enough, there is a noun there. Now, lots of you put thousands as an adjective, but it's actually a noun. It's giving you a number of something. Thousands of fish-like scales. Fish-like stays together and is an adjective. And here's another preposition. So really, you've got two prepositional phrases squished next to each other here. Okay, and that's actually acting as an adjective because it's describing Japanese armor. So armor is your noun, and Japanese describes the kind of armor you're talking about. Words that describe nouns are called adjectives. And here we have another prepositional phrase starting with of. And you have an article here, which is actually not one of the things that you might be looking at because it's not in this chapter, but that's almost always going to signal a noun right there. So, in the 1500s. Okay, let's take a look at the last one. We had a lot of people using so as a conjunction, but so in this case is modifying the word strong. So this is actually an adjective or a modifier. We have another adjective there. Now we have a comma here, which tells us that this whole phrase is not a complete sentence. Basically, starting with because, that's your conjunction. But let's find that verb again. Okay? So tried to unseat is a verb phrase. First verb and then second verb. A lot of people put preposition here, and what this to is functioning as is part of verb to. So you've got a two verb phrase here, tried to unseat. First verb is conjugated, which means it's put into this form. The second verb is in the infinitive form. Infinitive looks like this. And anytime you have to go or to be, a verb phrase like this, that's a verb in the infinitive form. Okay? So let's keep going. We've got nights as your subject noun, but it's still a noun, so don't just call it a subject. Often tried. Often tells the time of the verb, so that'd be an adverb describing this verb. Their opponents. Opponents is a noun. There is a possessive pronoun that describes this, so you could put pronoun. Some people put adjective, and I guess that would work as well because it is describing this noun. Instead of trying to pierce the armor. Instead of is going to work as a prepositional phrase, trying to pierce the armor. Trying is not a verb in this case, it's a gerund. The gerund functions as a noun. To pierce, and then the armor. Again, you've got an article here, which signals a noun at the end of your prepositional phrase.